I've really taken time to sort of work on my health, and we are talking like the last sort of 6 months or so. Obviously I've had this channel quite a while and I've been conscious of my health for a while, but the last sort of 6 months, diet and fitness and exercise and everything like that, I've really tried to take to another level. And what I've found is Hi guys, how are we? For those of you new here, I'm a psychology student trained to be a therapist, so on this channel we talk about positivity, mindset, well-being, mental health and all things like that. So if that sounds of interest, stick around. Today I want to talk about something really important, and that's the idea of not ideal still being a disaster. We've been taught that being below par is completely fine, completely acceptable and doesn't have any damage to you. Being slightly overweight, drinking a bit too much, or not really doing any exercise, we've been told it's completely fine, and that just is how some people live. That is all an absolute lie, and I can almost guarantee it's what's making you miserable. I'm not saying that to be judgmental, I'm saying that to shift your thinking, and I'm saying it to be kind really, because like I said, that mentality of just living sort of slightly below par and just getting along and everything like that, I can almost guarantee that is making you miserable, whether you realise it or not. The reason these things are an issue, there's two main reasons really. The first one being, I mean, quite obviously, it's become socially acceptable to just live in bad health, whether that be work-life balance, being overweight, drinking too much, drugs, no sleep, whatever it is, work-life balance, whatever the thing is, we've been told that as part of casual conversation, if you say, oh, like, I'm not really doing this, I'm not really doing that, that's just fine. That's just how some people live. But the second thing is, it's taught us to not fix anything until it's become an absolute disaster. And one, that is absolutely ridiculous. And two, it's really, really damaging for our health. It should be blindingly obvious, but apparently it's not. The human body is not designed to live in a state of constant bad health. Before modern medicine and everything that's going on these days, people who lived in bad health died. That was what Darwinism is, and that may sound a bit dramatic, but it is true. If we did not have the medical advancements that we'd had in, probably, being generous, the last 100, but more like the last 50 years, a lot of people that are alive today wouldn't be here. Purely obesity, if nothing else, would wipe out a hell of a lot of people in the Western world. A lot of people forget, but obesity wasn't really like a thing before like 2000 really, maybe sort of the late 90s. If you watch even shows like Friends, which was I think finished in 2004 or something like that, I know it's a TV show, but even just in the characters, everyone in it, how many people are actually overweight? It was just never really a thing. It's a thing that's become completely normalised in sort of the last 10 to 15 years. And it's obviously a very controversial topic at the moment because of things like body positivity and things like that. But what people forget is the actual underlying cause of being overweight. And by overweight, I mean having a body fat percentage that is too high for your body and the size of your body. The health implications that are behind that can absolutely ruin you. Anyway, slight tangent, but like I said, this is basically all this that I've talked about there, all this has culminated in people basically living in a constant state of discomfort, be that physically or mentally, and being told, oh, it's okay because things aren't absolutely terrible. You haven't had a heart attack yet, so your weight's not too much of a problem. You haven't got diabetes yet, so your diet's not too much of a problem. You haven't had a stroke yet, so your drinking and smoking is not too much of a problem. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not saying this from a perch of being Mr. Perfect. Far from it. I've literally did a whole video on why I will never give up drinking and things like that. I don't eat absolutely perfect, of course not. But what I've found is, as I've really taken time to sort of work on my health, and we are talking like the last sort of 6 months or so. Obviously I've had this channel quite a while and I've been conscious of my health for a while, but the last sort of 6 months, diet and fitness and exercise and everything like that, I've really tried to take to another level. And what I've found is resistance training and the gym will always be a huge part of my life, and I absolutely love it. And I will never be an absolute cardio monster. It's just not who I am. It's not how I'm built. But one thing I've really noticed in terms of having the biggest effect on me physically and mentally is dropping my body fat percentage. Obviously it's nice to be strong and everything like that and throw the weights around, especially as blokes, we enjoy doing that. But in terms of self-confidence and actually just physical feeling, having a lower body fat percentage has done so much wonders for me. And that is because that's how we were designed as humans. That's literally how our bodies were meant to be. I don't want this video to be about me specifically or my journey, because it's not about that, but I can speak to this so heavily from experience. And again, I briefly touched on this in my last video if you wanted to go back and watch that. The reason I never really worked on myself for so long is because I was never, no part of me was ever a disaster. Like, I was overweight, my body fat percentage was too high, it was blindingly obvious, I've known it for years, but I was never sort of like I never ballooned, I was never sort of 30% body fat, I never like struggled to get in clothes or anything like that. I did drink too much. For what I wanted out of like my health, I did drink too much. But because I never went on benders, or I was never an alcoholic, or I never had a problem with alcohol, nothing, I never really actually looked at how much I was drinking. I certainly overate, and I did a video ages ago about sort of my relationship with food when I was sort of younger and even now. But again, I was never a binge eater. Like, I'd never sort of go and order 2 pizzas and stuff them down or anything. Like, because it never was a blindingly obvious problem in the sense of I had an addiction or it was ruining my life or other people were starting to notice or anything like that. Because it had become normalised for me to be like, oh yeah, it's not a huge problem, so I'm not going to... I never worked on anything. And as soon as I've actually taken the time to go, no, these things clearly are problems. I clearly do eat too much because I am overweight. I clearly do drink too much because when I cut back or cut out drinking, I feel so much better. And now I've taken the time to do those things, I don't want to go as far as revolutionise my health, because like I said, I wasn't in like an awful state at all. But I just feel so much better in myself. And the reason I said at the start, going back to what I was talking about earlier, whether you know it or not, it's making you miserable. It's because I can almost guarantee if you're not feeling right physically or mentally, it's probably because the state you're in may not be a good state, but you've just normalised it. Because everyone's saying, oh, you know, you're not overweight, or no, you're not drinking too much. This is just what everyone does. Like, you're no worse than that guy. You're no worse than that guy. This is just, you know, how we are. We're not all perfect. Because you've got into that mindset, you've just gone, oh, well, this is just how it's meant to be. It's just how I'm meant to be. And you're not, and it's not. It can get better. You can get better. You just have to work out exactly what it is that you want and work on those things that you know are the problem. And that is the beauty. A lot of the time, you do know what the problems are. I've always known what my problems are, but I've never actually taken the time to seriously sit down and address them. And I didn't want to sort of talk about this milestone until I actually hit it, but just on the trajectory graph, it looks like I'm gonna hit it sort of, not by the time this video comes out, but hopefully sort of by the maybe the couple afterwards. I'm going to have lost 10 kg since Christmas. So for any Americans watching, I think it's 2.2, isn't it? Something like that? 1.6, maybe I've completely made that up. But it's for someone my size, 10 kilograms is quite a lot. I'm going from 72 to 62. So it's 1/7 of my body weight. And I haven't really lost any strength or muscle mass. So that's pretty much all fat. And I just feel so much better for it. I haven't really done anything differently in the sense of wild radical changes to my life. I've majorly cut back on how much I'm drinking, which isn't going to be sort of a permanent thing at all, I don't think. I'll just sort of go on, see how long it lasts. And I've just made conscious efforts to cut back a little bit here on eating and maybe change some slight habits. And that has completely changed how I feel about myself. And a lot of people, if you've been watching my videos, you might be looking going, I can't tell that you've lost 10 kilograms in the last 6. Possibly not, but it's not about that. It's how I feel. I just feel lighter. I feel slimmer. I feel more agile. Feel better in my mind. And that is because I'm getting closer to what humans were meant to be like. We were not designed to be overweight. I don't want to go on too long. To round off the point, again, if you can set your standard to being good, anything below good is a disaster. And that's not a disaster in the sense of you go into a massive panic mode. That's as soon as you drop below good, you go, right, okay, we're going to get back to good. Another example of this that I've seen is, again, one of my very close friends, Charlie at Living Lean, who does YouTube and Instagram as well, and very into his fitness. When we went on a stag do back in February, he came back from the stag do. We both had an awful weekend in terms of drinking and eating and everything like that. We'd done a lot of steps because it was a city break, but like, it's a stag do. We weren't exactly counting our calories and everything like that. But because he started at the level of good, or more like very good, and I started at the level of okay, not ideal, when we got back, he had dropped to the level that I started the stag do on. So all he had to do was do a bit of work to get back to being good or very good. I had to do all this work just to get back to being not ideal. I had to get back to being not where I wanted to be. And that's the difference. And there's a saying that it's easier to maintain than to build. I think if you are someone who is in really good shape, they'd probably say that isn't quite true. There is always going to be a lot of effort. But the point is when you're at that stage of feeling good, you get addicted to that feeling and you want to get back there. And it's easier to get back there, not in terms of it's easier in what you have to do, but it's easier in your mind because you know what you're going for and you miss that feeling of being healthy and in shape. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I do appreciate you guys who stick around. Slightly longer video today, I know. If you did find it useful, please do consider liking and subscribing. I drop 2 of these every week, so subscribing and hitting the bell. I don't actually know what the bell thing does, but they all say to hit the bell thing, so hit the bell thing. Comment any other thoughts you have below. My socials are in the description if you want to drop me a message or anything like that, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care, guys.